When Alex found a stranger's necklace in his wife's car, he didn't confront her. He built a plan. 1 year later, she walked into a courtroom thinking she'd win everything until the judge read the evidence. She didn't just lose her husband. She lost everything she betrayed. Alex never expected his life to unravel on a Tuesday. It wasn't a dramatic day. No storm, no screaming. Just a forgotten necklace tucked beneath the passenger seat of his wife's car. He'd borrowed Lindsay's SUV that morning to drive their dog to the vet. She usually kept the vehicle spotless. But when he adjusted the seat and reached down for a fallen receipt, his fingers brushed something cold. A necklace. Gold. Delicate. With a small heart pendant and initials that didn't match anyone in their life. It wasn't hers. Alex knew every piece of jewelry Lindsay owned. He had bought most of it. This was different. Feminine, yes, but careless. Like it had been pulled off quickly and dropped without thought. He didn't panic. He didn't even ask. Instead, he tucked the necklace into his jacket pocket and went on with his day. Alex wasn't the jealous type. He was analytical. He'd built a career in systems analysis, finding patterns, fixing what was broken. So when doubt crept in, he didn't react emotionally. He started logging data. For weeks, he watched. Patterns emerged. Lindsay started coming home late, blaming open houses or demanding buyers. Her phone never left her hand. She used to fall asleep beside him while watching documentaries. Now she slept with her back turned, always claiming she was exhausted. Still, he said nothing. He didn't want to fight. He wanted the truth. They'd been together 9 years. Married for 5. She had been his rock when he got laid off in 2020. They'd scrimped and saved for their first home. Built a life from nothing. But lately Lindsay seemed elsewhere. Smiling at things that weren't shared. Laughing to herself. Checking messages that made her eyes shift like she was doing something wrong but daring him to notice. And now he had noticed. That weekend he left town, told her he was going on a quick trip to help his brother with renovations. She didn't ask questions. Just nodded, distracted, barely looking up from her screen. That confirmed it. The Lindsay he knew, the one who used to cry at Pixar movies and bring him donuts for no reason, was gone. While in Houston, Alex met with a private investigator. He didn't want to jump to conclusions, but he needed facts. Hard proof. Not because he needed to confront her, but because he knew what was coming next would require precision. It didn't take long. Within days, the PI delivered the first set of images. Lindsay. At a Marriott hotel. Meeting the same man twice in 3 days. They didn't kiss in public, but the body language was clear. She leaned into him, touched his wrist when she laughed. That necklace, was around her neck in the second photo. It wasn't just cheating. It was comfort. Repetition. Routine. This wasn't a one-night lapse. It was a second life. Alex stared at the photos for hours, not in disbelief, but in detachment. There were no angry tears. No yelling. Just a mental shift, like a door closing quietly inside him. The woman he trusted had crossed a line, and there was no walking back from it. But he wasn't going to scream. He wasn't going to beg. That's not who he was. He was going to prepare. He started by removing his name from all non-essential joint accounts. Quietly withdrew half of the emergency savings and deposited it into a new account. He didn't shut anything down. Just mirrored everything. If she was building a separate life, so was he. He hired a lawyer, quiet, efficient, and ruthless. They met twice a week, going over everything. Lindsay had no idea. At home, he cooked dinner, asked about her day, even laughed at her jokes. She seemed relieved. Thought maybe the storm had passed. But it hadn't even started. Alex wasn't preparing for a confrontation. He was building a case. Because when it ended, it wouldn't be with slammed doors or broken dishes. It would end in a courtroom. And she wouldn't see it coming. Alex didn't waste time. Once the first surveillance photos were confirmed, he asked the PI for names, routines, connections. The man Lindsay was meeting went by Derek, mid-30s, worked as a freelance photographer. No spouse, no kids, and apparently no steady income. Derek had been on Lindsay's radar for at least 3 months. Longer if you traced the messages that started innocently and escalated into after-hours meetups. Alex studied Derek's public profiles, which weren't well protected. It didn't take long to match the timeline. A trip Lindsay claimed was for a realtors conference in Dallas matched Derek's tagged photos of downtown adventures the same weekend. Her texts to Alex were dry updates about seminars. Derek's captions were nights that matter. Alex began organizing everything. Not to confront, but to construct a legal narrative. Emails, phone logs, credit card statements, hotel charges. Lindsay used their joint card to book the room. That small mistake would later become critical. Still, Alex kept up appearances. He kissed her goodnight, planned their weekly grocery runs, even booked a couple's massage weekend she had once mentioned in passing. She lit up, thinking he was reconnecting. What she didn't know was that the spa was chosen because it was next door to a notary office. He had documents to sign and she was distracted enough not to notice. The lawyer advised Alex to stay quiet until he had everything: property valuation, financial statements, legal strategy. Texas was a community property state, but infidelity could sway negotiations if proven well enough. That meant patience, silence, more watching. Then, one Thursday, Lindsay slipped. She forgot to log out of her iPad before heading to her mother's for the weekend. Alex found it charging on the kitchen counter. He opened it without hesitation. What he found wasn't just proof. It was intent. The messages between her and Derek were bold. She wasn't just having an affair, she was plotting a future. She'd sent him listings. Talked about the kind of house we could afford once this is over. She used phrases like finally free and starting clean. Worst of all, she said, he's too passive to notice. I'll be the one to leave first. That line hit different. She thought he'd wait, that he wouldn't fight, that he'd crumble quietly while she walked out clean. Alex closed the iPad, backed up the messages, and returned it as it was. He didn't confront her when she returned Sunday night. Instead, he ordered takeout, poured her a glass of wine, and asked about her weekend. She lied to his face as easily as breathing. That night, he finalized the timeline. 2 more weeks, then the filing. Enough time to stabilize the financial structures he'd built. He switched his direct deposit to the solo account, removed her as a secondary contact at work, changed his emergency contact to his sister. All the while, Lindsay scrolled through Pinterest boards for minimalist kitchens and texted Derek that she could see the finish line. Alex's revenge wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was legal, methodical, and surgical. He wasn't trying to destroy her, just ensuring she owned every consequence of her decision. One morning, Lindsay left her laptop open. Alex didn't go looking, but a notification popped up. It was from Derek. Did you tell him yet? She replied minutes later, not yet. I will after this weekend. Need it to be smooth. That was the moment Alex smiled. Because he was already ahead. He scheduled the filing for the following Friday. Served at her office. Not at home, not at a neutral location, at her job where she'd been bragging about getting a promotion. The documents were clear, irreconcilable differences supported by detailed evidence of infidelity. On Thursday night, Alex made her dinner. Her favorite. They watched a movie together. She laughed, relaxed, certain she was in control. She had no idea that 12 hours later, her world would flip. The next day, Alex received a text from his attorney, served. She looked stunned. She didn't come home that night. She texted instead, we need to talk. Alex responded, we will. In court. He wasn't angry. He was ready. She had underestimated him, and now she was playing catch-up in a game she thought she invented. Lindsay came home 2 days after being served. She didn't speak at first. Just stood in the entryway like someone trying to calculate whether to yell, cry, or retreat. Alex stayed seated at the kitchen table, sipping coffee. He didn't look up until she broke the silence. You blindsided me. He set the mug down calmly. You said you'd be the one to leave first. I just sped up the timeline. She took a few steps forward, hands clenched. You didn't even ask me why. I didn't need to. You were planning your exit. I just gave you the door. For a moment, she seemed ready to argue, but something in his voice stopped her. Maybe it was the calm. Maybe it was the fact that he hadn't raised his voice once. She didn't expect composure, she expected chaos. Instead, he gave her clarity. That night, Lindsay didn't sleep in their bedroom. She barely touched anything. The next morning, she tried to start a conversation over breakfast. I made a mistake, she said quietly. Alex didn't respond. I never stopped loving you. He looked at her, expression flat. You just stopped respecting me. Same result. The next few days were tense but controlled. They communicated only when necessary. Her tone changed from defensive to desperate. But the process had already begun. The court hearing was set for the following month. In the meantime, Alex continued living as if nothing were out of place. He focused on work, took long walks, visited his sister. He was rebuilding, not sulking. Lindsay, however, began unraveling. She made changes, cleaned the house, cooked dinners, asked about his day like nothing had happened. At one point, she even suggested couples therapy. Alex declined. You wanted freedom. Now you have it. But she didn't want it anymore. Not since Derek had ghosted her. Alex found out through the PI that Derek stopped responding days after the papers were served. No texts, no calls. He'd gone quiet. Apparently, once Lindsay's marriage fell apart, Derek lost interest. The fantasy only worked when it was forbidden. Now she was alone. And terrified. That weekend, she showed up in the living room holding a manila folder, printouts, emails, receipts. Here's everything. Bank transfers, passwords. You can have it all. Just don't throw it all away. He didn't even open it. You're not making a trade. This isn't a negotiation. She nodded, eyes down. The final nail came the week before the hearing. Alex's lawyer uncovered a series of financial moves Lindsay had made in secret. Small transfers to a personal account under a different name. She had been planning a full escape, new apartment, new city, new life. But she'd left a trail. Alex brought it to court. In the courtroom, Lindsay looked polished but hollow. She didn't deny anything. She couldn't. The evidence spoke louder than words. Photos. Messages. Bank records. Her own words in screenshots. He won't fight. He'll let me go. The judge didn't need long. Alex was granted the house, 80% of the shared savings, and full control over their joint property sale. Lindsay got a smaller settlement and no claim to his post-marriage income. Her attorney tried to soften the terms, but it was too late. As the judge finalized the agreement, Lindsay didn't look at Alex. She stared ahead, lips tight, trying not to show emotion. But Alex watched her. Not out of malice, but because he needed to remember the reality, what betrayal looks like when the show ends. Outside the courthouse, she waited for him. I didn't think it would end like this, she said. He looked at her steadily. You thought it wouldn't end at all. She shook her head, voice trembling. I didn't know what I was doing. You knew enough to lie. And to plan your exit while still using my money. She looked away. Can't we just talk? We are talking, he said, stepping past her. Lindsay didn't follow. She stood there, alone, while Alex walked to his car without looking back. For months, he had waited for that moment, not to gloat, but to prove to himself that he could survive it. And he had. Not by yelling. Not by begging. By staying quiet long enough to make his move. Lindsay didn't move out right away. Legally, she had 30 days to vacate the property. But Alex knew why she stayed. It wasn't about convenience. It was about control. About trying to turn back time. In those final weeks under the same roof, she became someone else entirely. She woke early, cooked breakfast, complimented his shirts, asked if he needed anything at the store. She made small talk like nothing had happened. Alex didn't argue. He let her play out the routine. Let her feel the shift. Because she wasn't fooling him anymore, she was performing for someone who had stopped watching. One night, Lindsay knocked on his door. I know I've lost you, she said. But can I at least explain? Alex didn't stop her. She sat on the edge of the couch, hands folded, voice calm. It wasn't just about Derek. It was about how invisible I felt. Like we were just going through the motions. I wanted something to wake me up. He listened. Not out of curiosity, but because closure no longer hurt. I thought you'd fight for me, she added. But you didn't. He waited a beat before answering. I did fight. I just fought in a way you never saw coming. She flinched at that. I was wrong. No, he corrected, you were careless. Wrong is when you trip. Careless is when you jump and hope no one notices the landing. After that, she stopped trying to talk. She moved around the house quietly, shrinking more each day. Alex used the time to finalize his plans. He transferred the deed into his name. He started therapy, not because he was broken, but to sharpen the edges dulled by years of emotional wear. He reconnected with old friends. Took long walks. Didn't check his phone for her messages anymore. The PI, long since paid and finished, sent one final email. Derek had moved out of state. No contact with Lindsay. No forward address. Just gone. Alex didn't need the update. He'd figured as much. Derek had played his part and disappeared. No accountability. No apologies. But Lindsay? She stayed, cleaning surfaces she never cared about before, folding laundry like it could reverse betrayal. Her phone rarely rang. Her world, once loud with distraction, was silent now. And silence has a way of amplifying guilt. 2 days before her move-out deadline, she asked to talk one last time. They sat at the dining table, an oddly formal setup for what was likely her final pitch. I don't want to leave like this, she said. You already did, Alex replied. Months ago. You just forgot to pack. Her eyes welled up, but he didn't move to comfort her. I lost everything, she said softly. You lost what you threw away, he corrected. That's not theft. That's consequence. She slid a small box across the table. Inside was the necklace, the one Alex found that started it all. I thought it belonged to him, she said. But it was mine. From years ago. I forgot it was even in the car. Alex stared at it for a moment, then closed the lid. Doesn't change anything, he said. She nodded. I know. The morning she left, Alex didn't watch her go. He didn't stand at the door. He just waited until the silence confirmed she was gone. Later, he found a note on the counter. "You were right to leave. I hope someday you find someone who chooses you the way I should have." He folded it once and tossed it in the trash. She'd made her choice. He made his. And now the house felt different. Not lighter, not emptier, just honest. No more pretending. No more performing. Just the aftermath and the quiet strength of someone who refused to be dismantled by betrayal. He wasn't broken. He was free. 6 months after Lindsay moved out, the house was quiet but not hollow. Alex had filled it with new routines, new energy. He didn't rush to redecorate or erase her memory. Instead, he focused on what came next: his business, his health, and his peace of mind. He had always been methodical, but now he was purposeful. He changed careers, trading his high-pressure role in corporate systems analysis for something more human-scale, consulting for small startups, mentoring younger tech professionals. It gave him space to think and breathe. Friends he hadn't spoken to in years reached out. Some had heard whispers about the divorce. Others were just reconnecting. For the first time in years, Alex said yes to lunches, to hikes, to road trips. He wasn't chasing distraction. He was building momentum. Every now and then, Lindsay's name would pop up. A mutual acquaintance would mention that she'd moved to Phoenix, working at a smaller agency, renting a condo. No new relationships as far as anyone could tell. She was trying to rebuild too, but differently. One evening, while clearing out a drawer, Alex found the envelope with the photos, proof of the affair. He held it for a moment, then tossed it into the shredder. He didn't need it anymore. That chapter was closed, and keeping the evidence only kept him tethered to something already dead. He didn't hate Lindsay. Not anymore. What he felt was more complicated, like acknowledging the final credits of a show you used to love but can no longer watch. She had changed, and so had he. Only one of them had been honest about it. A few weeks later, he received a handwritten letter in the mail. No return address, but he recognized the handwriting. Lindsay. It was short. No plea. No apology beyond what had already been said. Just one sentence that stood out. "I didn't know what I was breaking until I saw it from the outside." He didn't respond. He didn't need to. Closure isn't a conversation, it's a decision. The following weekend, Alex went to dinner with someone new. A woman named Julia. They met through mutual friends. She was thoughtful, sharp, and asked real questions. No masks. No pretense. Just real time shared without expectation. There were no declarations. No rebound fireworks. Just mutual curiosity, like people carefully learning how to trust again. And that was the real ending, not the courtroom, not the moving trucks, not the shredded photos. It was the quiet understanding that surviving betrayal doesn't mean proving a point or getting even. It means reclaiming your own dignity brick by brick, truth by truth. Alex didn't rebuild out of revenge. He rebuilt out of necessity. He never forgot what it felt like to be lied to in your own home. To eat meals across from someone planning to leave you. To hand over your trust while someone else was discarding it. But he also never forgot what it felt like to stand back up, to calmly, legally, decisively walk away without begging to be treated better. Lindsay had once told him, "You're too calm. You never fight." She was wrong. He fought harder than she ever knew. Just not with shouting. With strategy. With facts. With restraint. In the end, he didn't win her back. He didn't want to. He won back himself.